I am the director of the International Organization and UN Studies specialization at CIPA. I joined CIPA, I would say about, when I retired in 2006, so it's going to be nearly, it's 9 years after close to 30 years of work at the United Nations, essentially in peacekeeping operations. That was really my home, except for the last 10 years when I became the right hand of the Secretary General, then Kofi Annan. And then I was essentially doing political work. And what I wanted to do when I came to CIPA is really share with the students the complexity of a multilateral organization. When you have a board of 193 member states who have to decide on climate change, on an agreement on the refugees, on the future agenda for development for 2020 and so on. It's enormously complex, it's evolving, it's dynamic, power shifts, and it is shifting just now tremendously. And it is that story that I wanted them to understand and to really ask them the question, what do you prefer? Do you prefer to have an agreement on climate change, which is decided upon by China and the United States? Or do you want to have 193 member states having a feeling of ownership on this agreement and being in it and having given all their suggestions, recommendations, and so on? That is multilateralism. So the first thing I wanted to explain to students, having been really involved in the decision-making process of the UN, was the complexity and how many UN there are. Because when I asked them the question, when you say the UN failed, who is the UN for you? And they don't understand that there are at least 4 United Nations, the UN of the member states, which is the most important one, the UN of the Secretary General, who is an organ independent of the UN, and his staff, all the departments, the agencies who work with us, the people of the world, because our charter starts with we the people, and they are becoming more and more important with us. And then there are all the partners, the private sector, and the academic institutions, the press. At some point, CNN was the 6th member of the Security Council, maybe Al Jazeera now, but at some point it was CNN. So it's this complexity, it's global. It's an instrument dealing, of global governance, dealing with global issues. It's enormously complex. Second thing was that I wanted to take them to the field. I wanted them to understand things that you cannot teach in a classroom. There are things you can teach, and there are things that students have to experience themselves. And the realities of the field, understanding conflicts, understanding post-conflict situations, because that's where we deploy in peacekeeping, obviously, understanding that for themselves, understanding the constraints, the political constraint, the operational constraint, the misery of the people after 14 years of civil war is really what I wanted them to understand. So I took students, for instance, immediately when I came here to Haiti, to 2 different research projects. I stayed with them for 10 days, and we were the host of MINUSTA at the time, the peacekeeping operation. And as you know, I was caught in the earthquake with my students the 2nd year. So we went to research the role of the private sector in Haiti in peace building, and we were caught in the biggest humanitarian situation that they could have seen. In 68 seconds, there were 250,000 people killed around us. And we survived. We were alive by a second. I can tell you the story, but we were with a peacekeeping operation when it happened, which is an old hotel, so it was all, and we just came out of that building when the earthquake started. And all my colleagues were crushed. I lost 103 colleagues in 68 seconds. So the students stayed with me for 3 days and 3 nights in Haiti. What an experience for them to see that. I mean, you can't teach this. It was, we lived with the aftershocks, with the threats of tsunami. We helped the crushed with Partners in Health, which was on the ground. And finally, I didn't know how to get them out of this. And finally, It was a UN helicopter carrying very seriously wounded people to the Dominican Republic. And a friend of mine who had not been killed, who was at the head of the logistics, who said to me, take the helicopter and go to the ER, and from there you can go back to New York. But you know, it was such an extraordinary experience for them to see this on the ground. Granted, it was a natural disaster. It was not a civil war, but it gave them an idea. So I have wanted to do that, not only to teach, but I have wanted to take students to really understand the field, be prepared to work in the field. And you know, in the field you deal with the three big pillars of peace, which is security, development, and human rights. And so they see that on the ground. How do you sustain the peace? How do you make the peace? How do you achieve and keep it? I read it as really a recognition on the part of the students that I was reaching my goal of, in a way, doing public good. It's really public good, you know. I mean, you do that because you believe in sharing with students, in inspiring them, in leadership, in teaching them leadership. And when I was in Haiti, it was a very difficult experience for me as well, because my daughter was the director of the Clinton Foundation office there, working on HIV/AIDS. She was in a building with the Canadians, and I was with the peacekeeping operation. And for hours, we didn't know if the other one was alive. And my students saw that. And, you know, we spent the whole night on the driveway of UNDP with the aftershocks and all the crushed people coming to the driveway and so on. You know, I took care of the students, and I was fierce with them because I wanted to know where they were. There were still things falling around, and, you know, apart, and the soil was open. I mean, you know, it was really a very difficult context. And the way we overcame this experience when we came back as well, you know, I was very close to the team for the whole year, but it was very traumatic for all of us. For a while, we couldn't be in the subway without feeling that something was going to fall on us, and the students could not follow deadlines because they had lost control. So it took a lot, and I think the students wanted to really recognize that. And for me, it was teaching them what leadership is all about and what it takes to be in the field, to be responsible for people. You know, we were surrounded by UN staff who had lost their families there. I mean, I remember one from UNDP who lost his wife. She was crushed, and the care and the support he gave to us that night on that driveway, I'll never forget. I can tell you, you know, millions of stories like this. And the students saw all this, they understood. So it meant a great deal to me to have that award, which was really a special award, which was the Teachers of the Year, to bring back my students alive. You know, for 3 days and 3 nights, I didn't know if I could bring them back alive. And some schools were less lucky than we were. Our hotel was crushed. If it had happened a few hours later at night, we would have all been dead. Because I went back to our bedroom to try to get our passports to go to the ER, and the peacekeepers didn't want me to go there. And they said, "But you are crazy, you can't go to that." I went, and you know, as a story I want to tell you, the day before we went to a kind of market in Haiti, and it was just at Christmas time, because it was in January, and the Haitians were selling little crèches, but very primitive in a way, made with clay, you know. And my crèche, I had bought a crèche, and it was on a table in my bedroom. And I told the peacekeepers, I want to get that crèche back, because I saw it. It had survived. And they said, "You can't do it. It's full of rubble. You can't. It's dangerous." And I went to get my crèche back, and I got it back. But just to show you the context and the luck also to be alive. You know, I felt so guilty when I came back for my young colleagues had been crushed. And I just want to tell you a story because it illustrates the UN so much. I came back to headquarters and I went to the UN because I'm constantly there. And people knew what happened, obviously. And I met an African in the corridor, and he said to me, Oh, but your colleagues are not dead. They are with you. And I don't know, I felt there was something in front of me. You know, sometimes when you walk and you think there is somebody in front of you. And I said, oh, sorry, I thought I was bumping into something. He said, no, that was one of your colleagues. That's the African view of death. Then I met somebody from Middle East and who said to me, it was not your time. It was written. It was not your time. Inshallah. Okay. Then I met somebody from, you know, my group, so to speak, the Christians, and they said to me, God's will, you are doing too many good things, God doesn't want you to, and so on and so on, and the Asians, and everybody was giving me their definition of death. That's the UN. So that's what I want to teach the students when they go to this initiative, the day at the UN. I always tell them, okay, if somebody prays with a carpet in his office or her office, respect it. If you see something, pictures, ask them, who is that? Where do you come from? You know, the personal touch constantly that the UN, I mean, it's people. We are really the people of the world, and it's that kind of richness that I want to teach them as well. So to come back to that prize, it's a long question to a short story. Of course, it means a lot to me. And, you know, I think in 2008, I got also the award of the best teacher at SIPA. That is, you know, that is huge to me because I always wonder, am I teaching them something which is meaningful? Do they want to hear the experience? Are they interested in this? And that is a kind of image they send back to you. Also, you know, whatever you do in that classroom. So that means a great deal to me. It's like if you said to a musician, okay, you got the prize of the best musician in your school, at Juilliard School or whatever, what does it mean to you? It's the same. You play music. You share the music with them, hoping it's not a cacophony. So here is the answer. If you buy peace studies, you are talking about a comprehensive conception of peace, meaning, once again, security, development, and the rule of law, the triangle of peace. I would say it is more important than ever because, first of all, there is a deficit of humanity just now, all around us. There is a deficit of humanity. We have all the legal instruments that we need for justice. We have, you know, the Human Rights Convention. We have so many protocols. We have norms, the responsibility to protect. We have everything we need. We have, in the last 20 years, the UN has been working on the establishment of norms. But if the member states do not want to implement those norms, there is little except for the Secretary General to be the moral voice and keep saying, but you must help, you know, the people in Aleppo, and you must try to make peace, Russia and the United States, on Syria. And you must really, all of you, work on global issues like extremism, like you know, climate change, like development and so on. He has to push them, but there is nothing he can do to impose rule of law in countries. So I feel that we are in a context where there is a deficit of rule of law. There are atrocities being committed. We are here talking while Aleppo has no food, where people are dying because we can't get there, because we can't have a ceasefire for long enough to bring the humanitarian assistance, because we don't make the leaders accountable, because the Security Council faces the threat of a veto by Russia whenever we talk about accountability, when we talk about sanctions to prevent the weapons from coming in, because the US and Russia essentially have not put their acts together for a peace agreement. And we just take it day after day, you know, and then you see the same type of intolerance between Muslim and Christians happening all over the world, in the Republic of, Central Africa, in Sudan, and you see the lack of tolerance for other people's cultures and ways of being. Look at France. just now, A being the target, obviously, because it has tried to fight terrorism in CAR, in Mali and so on, but now overreacting, and putting everything in the same basket in the way they see, okay, Muslim means terrorism, so we don't want to have those values, so we are going to extremism, we are going to nationalism, we are going to extreme right, we are going, in this country there is a big threat as well, as you know, and this is a very dangerous world. So on one hand, you have issues becoming more global. No country is strong enough now to deal with those issues by themselves, and the US has experienced that on 11 September. But nobody is strong enough. Health is the same. You can have a Zika virus coming, and it's global. Issues without passports. And therefore the UN become even more relevant because it's an instrument of global governance which gives a convening table to the member state to negotiate those issues. That's called multilateralism, and we give that convening table. We push, we lead from below sometimes, but there is a limit to what the Secretary General and his staff can do. So I feel that in a world which is more globalized, including terrorism, who are the winners of globalization, and tweet, they do all kind of things, and we don't know what, it's so hard, they don't have a base, they are all over the place. So, for instance, this issue is becoming global, and in peacekeeping operations, because of that, has a really hard time. Now, because of that, and peace is hard to achieve now. You have to believe passionately, furiously, that you as an individual can make a difference. That is the philosophy that I teach them. Don't become cynical. The world doesn't need, then you have no use if you are cynical. You've got to keep that belief, and that is leadership, to believe in a cause and to believe that no matter how small it's going to be, whether it's in the private sector, whether it's at the UN, whether it's with an NGO, a think tank, teaching, researching, believe that you can make a difference as an individual, and of course also collectively. So I think that this is it. This is my philosophy.